Good afternoon, good midday. Good to be here. I'm so excited for this conversation. We were talking already a little bit, behind the stage and, how we just need to talk about ourselves and as women and how we're caring for ourselves, but especially as it relates to food. 10 years ago, I was on an Essence stage 10 years ago. Oh, wow. I was a baby girl then, And the talk that I did was food is medicine. Yeah. And I come from a public health background, pediatrician, preventive medicine. And I always talked about the importance of, knowing that what you put in your mouth is about instructions. It's giving your body instructions. But Dr. Valentine, who is here in Louisiana, and here in New Orleans, you do a lot on food and talking about food is medicine.
Yes.
What is meant by that? Because medicine, most of us don't like to take medicine. We know we have to when we have to, but right. Why food and connecting it to medicine? Why is that important?
Sure. So food is medicine. Medicine isn't fun. And food in Louisiana is a lot of fun. And that's what we connected to. And so understanding that food is foundational. Eating fruits, vegetables, not skipping meals, all of that is really vital to the life that you live. And we know that it's connected to managing chronic diseases, preventative medicine, preventing chronic diseases, and longevity. So living that long, healthy life, all of that is tied to the food that we eat.
Absolutely. Leela, so for you, what is your food journey and what is your relationship with food? We all have relationships with food, right? And, and we can get more in depth about that, but, we'll talk about ours. But I was just curious, what is your relationship with food and how have you always thought about it? And especially in the context of the work that you do and the amazing work and creation that you do, how do you use that?
Well, for me, it's understanding, as she said, food is not just fuel, but it's part of who we are, it's our culture, it's history, it's resistance. And so for me, I use it as a form of weaponry, as a weapon to survive. And in doing so, I treat it as if I would want to take care of a car. I want to put good gas into the car. You know what I mean? Keep the oil changed. So that means you have to eat the right things. You do. You need your fruits and you need your vegetables. I don't eat pork. I don't eat red meat. I've had some red meat once in the last month. But I steer away from those things and I try to eat a lot of green vegetables. And just as she said also, get your rest. That's very important. I don't get a lot of rest like I should, but I recognize the importance of that. Especially as Black women, because we're always multitasking and doing so much, and we're taking care of everyone and everybody but ourselves. So I think it's important to prioritize yourself. And for me, my thing is making sure that food is at the forefront of understanding that affects my health. What I put in my body affects how I feel. Physically and mentally. So it's important to do so. And get your rest and go to the doctor. Go see, get regular checkups and physicals. Those things are important.
Go ahead.
Very much so. No, as you said that, I'm thinking your voice is so powerful.
Thank you.
And women and children listen to it, and it's complementary to what we do at Healthy Blue. Just recognizing that, we know the statistics. We know that there are food insecurities and people that don't have enough to eat. We know that our community is impacted by that more than others, especially here in Louisiana.
Yes.
And it's important because you think about children, how we have more children in Louisiana that have food insecurities than the rest of the country. Yeah. And it has a ripple effect. So you think about child development, they've tied it. You mentioned how you feel. They literally have studies that tied it to increased anxiety, depression, mental distress, to not having proper food. And that's
Absolutely.
Why it is that medicine for you.
Yeah, I would definitely say we are definitely disproportionately affected in comparison to other cultures, Black and brown. And I don't think that that's a coincidence when you look at inner cities and the amount of fast food restaurants that exist and what we're feeding our kids. And again, some of us are single mothers, and when we're on the go, it's just the easy thing to do to just pull up into a fast food McDonald's and get that, but it's not healthy. And I think the difference is, I remember my mother telling me how my grandmother cooked, at the top of the week, and some of those meals just had to last and last. And so, we have to get back to like really cooking home meals and feeding it to our children, because they're definitely being in some ways poisoned by what is in these fast foods that we're eating, and we're all getting sick because of it.
Absolutely. And I think to that point, and it's information that we've known for a little bit of time. And so for Dr. Valentine, what do you tell people now at this point? What is the advice? What are the solutions? I did, as as a public health person, a lot of neighborhood work. We worked with bodegas, to try to, get them to have healthier choices. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I think the ideas behind them are good, but marketing is so powerful, that we know that people get bombarded in our communities, especially with these messages that are unhealthy. And so what is it, and what are some of the solutions that you've been a part of in terms of out on the community and the neighborhood level that brings people together as a community? Because I think sometimes, to your point, Leela, as an individual, it's really hard to make those steps. We need people. We need community to help make us healthy collectively. So what are those things that you have done and worked on?
Sure. No, Healthy Blue, this is a priority. Addressing food insecurities in Louisiana specifically is our priority. So we have partners in local communities to deliver meals, make sure that we have meals that are delivered that are tailored to what medical conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure. What we found is when we delivered meals to our members that had diabetes, that they actually saw improvement in their numbers when they went to their doctor and had those follow-up visits. We saw that it worked. And so continuing to do that is our mission. And not just across the state, but really specifically those zip codes in our state where we know the disparities are deepest, where we know that there really is a big difference between outcomes, and to have the improved outcomes and make sure that our children have those meals, because they're in school, they're tired. You mentioned activity level, they're tired, they can't pay attention, they're not learning as well. It really affects their life then, and then the healthy adult that they're trying to become. So it's a priority for us, and I'm gonna tell you, I eat pork and I eat beef, and I'm a Louisianian that enjoy all the foods. And you mentioned red beans. That's something we do on Mondays here to make it last through the week.
Yeah, stretch it out.
Yeah, stretch it out. But you can do that with healthier options as far as having fruits and vegetables as well. And making sure that we, have those healthy snacks for our children and watching those portions.
I did something with my son
son
when he was younger, and my daughter, I was trying to get them to fall in love with vegetables. So I had to come up with a creative way to get them to eat broccoli. So I was like, oh, this is some broccoli candy. I cut it up really cute, and I put it in a little Tupperware thing one day, and I sent it with them to school, and along with a couple of cookies, and I just sprinkled a little syrup on it. And now both of my children, they love broccoli, but I started early just trying to teach them like how to, enjoy vegetables and fruits, because let's be honest, a lot of the vegetables we're just not excited about, especially kids. But I think we have to find creative ways to get them back to eating those things that are healthy for us, so they don't only want to eat the French fries and the nuggets and all those different things. Yeah.
I love that.
I love that. I think that speaks to who you are, just I think in general, and I think that's the beauty. I talk a lot about the importance of leveraging arts and creativity and culture in order to advance health, and I feel like that's the very micro kind of demonstration of that, and that's beautiful. Yeah. When you're on tour and you're moving about and around, what do you go to and how do you take care of your health in those times, in those situations?
On tour can be challenging because you are moving around and it's not like you have access to cook, for yourself every day. So what we try to do on my rider, for example, I always have fresh fruits backstage, and I drink a lot of water, as much as I possibly can. And I have non-sugar juices. I don't do soda at all. So, I like juice, but I try to stay away from a lot of fructose and high sugar. Again, we in our culture are affected by diabetes, and it runs in my family, so I have to be very careful about that, and high blood pressure. So I try to, again, incorporate specific fruits like blueberries. I love blueberries that, attack or I should say help with high blood pressure, things of that sort, because it gets stressful on the road. So that's what I do for myself. And then I eat a lot of on the road fish. So I go in that direction. For my solid meal, I'll do salmon, in the evening and stuff like that. So throughout the day, backstage, if I'm on the road, it's fruits and veggies, little light stuff, and then I do a solid meal in the evening.
No, you mentioned water, and I know here in Louisiana, especially in the summer, that is so critically important.
Yeah.
People ask, well, it's so hot, how do you manage? Well, first, we stay inside when it's super hot, and we drink a lot of water, and it's important, especially here, that we have that fluid intake, and we're replacing that water. It is something that's important to health overall.
And sometimes you also not just like water, but try to get the good water. Get you some spring and alkaline water, you know what I mean? I try to do that. So that makes a difference too, I think, for myself.
Absolutely, and folks don't even realize that sometimes the number one reason why we have headaches oftentimes is because we are dehydrated, and we don't even realize it. And so the importance of staying hydrated is absolutely critical as we're moving about, whether here or anywhere we are around whatever we're doing at any point in time. So can you speak to, for the folks that are here and in the audience and, about the festival, what are some things that they can do, to kind of keep healthy, make sure they're eating right, all of that as they're here and stay hydrated?
Being mindful is critically important. Listening to your body as it whispers to you before it starts to yell, and making sure that you really not skipping those meals and you are having those snacks. But something that I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you were on this stage 10 years ago and talking about food as medicine. I mean, have you seen it change in that time? Has it looked different today than it did then as we have this conversation?
That's a great question. What I'll say is, and I think we all have a sense of this, is that we do see a level of consciousness around health that I don't think was there 10 years ago within our community. I definitely do, and we do know some stats, that people are working out more. They are exercising as much as they can in different communities, and not all communities. Income definitely, and your ability to have freedom and space to move about to exercise matters. The neighborhoods you live in matter in terms of your ability to be able to experience exercise in that kind of way. But also, we've seen a storm of like shakes and healthy drinks and smoothies that are, actually Black owned, and many of them are here at the festival. So I think that has absolutely changed. I think there is more information out there because of social media. Think of all of, we have some influencers here, health influencers here on the GBEV space, really speaking to that. And then ultimately, this year was the first year of the launch of the Future of Health. And we started last night. Yesterday, we convened 100 health leaders from across the country to be here in community, Black leaders, to speak about what is the future of health at this point in time in so many different ways, from the mix of AI, from the mix of our current landscape, for all the things that we can do as community solutions. And so even here in this GBEV space, over there is called the Future of Health neighborhood that I hope folks go and check out. We have great, partners that are in that space, but just really wanting to have health be more this experience about the many different ways we can engage with health, be more broad for us and be more direct and closer to us so that we can be more curious, we can ask questions. Because we're in a time where a lot of the places where we typically get information are not available. It's hard for us as physicians to get health information at this time. So we want to make sure that we're able to get that health information for people. So that's one of the reasons why we have the Future of Health and why Global Black Economic Forum, really launched that this year. So thank you for that question. That was a turn. Thank you.
Excellent.
So again, so we're now it was mid-year, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any plans or goals? And I know you're usually in physician mode, but I want you to go in. Let's be, we're our human selves, and you're great at doing this. But what are your kind of goals around food and eating for this year? Like, what do you think makes sense for the future of health for you within this year?
I know part of my goal is really, as I look at the people that I serve in my community, making sure that we bring awareness to what food insecurity may look like. It doesn't look like what you may necessarily think. It could be a working parent. It can be an aging adult, a sick child. I want people to recognize that it's important. We do this at Essence, check in on each other, but we need to do that more in our everyday lives, in our communities that we live in. The people that we see and interact with every day may have skipped a meal because they're making decisions. And what is very important is recognizing that healthy food is not a luxury item. Having fruits and vegetables are items that people deserve to have. And that's part of my goal, is really taking the mask off of the idea of what people may have as what a food insecure individual may look like. Because it could be someone you're working with and you have no idea because you haven't had that question and that conversation, and that may be their normal. That's right. So I think that having conversations like this with people that have very powerful voices, like both of you, becomes important in this venue and beyond to bring awareness here.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. No, I'm just agreeing.
absolutely, yeah. And I think to that point also, we have to be honest with each other. I mean, that's when, we can't be, well, we can be honest with some people we don't know. But, I think the beauty of when we have these conversations as, our girlfriends and our friends is just being honest. And that's sometimes hard, because we see some of our friends that aren't as healthy as they should or could be.
Yeah.
And how do we speak up about that, and speak forward about that without
coming off judgmental.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I think we have to do it, right? And this is about collective health, right? So the whole theme of the future of health is with us, by us, for us.
Yeah.
And so if we're really committed to that, then we got to speak our truth to power, even with each other, even when it's hard.
Yes, definitely. Giving each other the space to do so. The non-judgment is important because it is so common that I think people get used to it.
Yeah.
And it's not an everyday conversation. I mean, we're not really necessarily asking if you had lunch or if you had breakfast. And I know we can easily potentially work through lunch and not even realize it. Or I love the way you say you're so intentional with eating healthy and finding salmon and things like that when you're all over, the country and the world, touring. That is intentional.
It's intentional, and I feel like we have to be intentional, and we have to get back to our ancestral roots. Our ancestors used food as a healing property. And so we have to get back to doing those things, especially in our culture, again, because we are being affected by the processed foods and just our lifestyles in general, the stress, everything that comes with it. So we have to tap back into the things that kept us alive and how we were surviving to begin with. And just to that point, when we were brought over here against our will and we had to survive, we started eating things based on survival, i.e. chitlins, and a lot of now we still eat that stuff, but we don't have to. And I know it might taste good to some of us, but some of those things we have to be honest about what it is. It's not healthy for us. And tell yourself, what are you actually eating? Be honest. What is a chitlin? You know, it's not to judge, but it's just being honest about that. So we have to reassess the things that we are putting into our bodies because it's affecting our health. Those things affect hypertension and diabetes. So we need to remove those things because our ancestors didn't eat that stuff. That's the truth. So we got to go back to where we come from and how we started and how we were healthier then.
Great
I
point.
100% agree. And with that, I want to thank you both for being in this conversation with me and being here and just enjoying, the rest of your time in New Louisiana.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank y'all.